Buongiorno, signori e signori. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Добрый день, господа. Сегодня форум в первый раз за всю свою историю.
For the first time in the history of this forum, today we have a session dedicated to agriculture, and I'm really happy with this. That means recognizing the agricultural economy around the world. When this session started, and I would like to stress that I work for the FAO in Moscow, and today's panel is extremely interesting. I will introduce the speakers, but first just a couple of words as an introduction. In order to feed all the world's population, we shall have to increase production by 50 or 60%. In a situation where we don't know where to find new resources, there are climate changes that pose additional limits to the resources we have available, and urbanization, which is continuing. More than half of the population lives in the cities. The food demand is growing as a consequence, all of which is posing new challenges and new objectives. Last year, 17 development goals were approved. The second one requires us to stop hunger throughout the world. Sector has to be sustainable, not only to feed the population, but to leave resources for future generations. And this is going to be possible if there's going to be business as usual. We need an economy capable to make the most of the available resources. Today we have tried to organize the panel in such a way that there can be some engineering, biological, biotechnological, chemical, and IT solutions. We have among us two decision makers. We are going to listen what our governments are doing for agriculture to become part of real economy. I give the floor to Evgeny Babich, the head of Information Technology Department of Ministry of Agriculture and Food of Belarus. In Belarus, agriculture is one of the main sectors. Digitalization has already been introduced in agriculture. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. In our century, the development of IT and the transition to digitalization makes agriculture different. This sector of agriculture has a higher technology intensity. The efficiency of the use of the resources is essential. The main goal of any country is to guarantee food security. We can speak about technology, we can see the issue from different points of view, but agriculture and farmland pastures are the main element to ensure food security. These elements have to be seen as the two angles of the agricultural triangle. Russia is using technology in agriculture nowadays and in the management of agriculture. Technology is essential in the processing of crops. The resources, agricultural resources, require investments. We have a lot of technology nowadays, drones, space technology, and many of these new technologies that can be used in agriculture, even the possibility to map the farmland so as to define the quality of the crops that we want to obtain. It is important to be able to forecast the amount of crops that can be obtained and the quality. Innovation is going to be fundamental for an efficient agriculture in our countries. Cartography, the mapping of farmland is fundamental. It will be based on big data. And as far as farming is concerned, all of these aspects are the objectives that we would like to reach. We are not quite there yet. And even the case of cattle rearing, it is difficult to keep track of the numbers of animals that are reared. There are technologies that are applied to the actual storage and the conservation of the genetic heritage of the animals. Our states have to support the exportation of farm crops, irrespective of the type of product. In my country, the agro-food sector, exports play a major role. This is why we have to be able to identify the products, to guarantee their tracing. And the main objective that we have today in the Euro-Asian continent is a form of trade doing away with all the bureaucracy, just using a one-stop shop in order to identify production. In 2018, in Belarus, the identification of cattle has been introduced with a new system so that the veterinary history of cattle can be tracked, as well as an identification system based on a GS1 system. This is a single system used for the identification of cattle. There is an additional system applied to the byproducts farming. The system is organized in such a way that the exported products can also be accompanied by the storage of data that make tracing possible. This is why all the permits or authorization by the veterinary authorities have to be kept. These systems have been introduced, but they work in some areas. They are less implemented in other areas. Efficiency is one of our goals. Furthermore, more investments are needed in the case of drones, not only to check the safety of products, which is guaranteed 100%, but also to support exportation. In this way, we can help exporters to obtain the necessary documents to be able to export. We are very close to trade, let's say paper-free trade, with no bureaucracy, no red tape, and then the digitalization of the supervision of farmland and the use of the necessary fertilizers. To go back to the idea of precision technology in agriculture, in the 70s, a whole series of new machinery was introduced, which was already highly technological. There are sophisticated machines to work the land, but it is also important to speak of an integrated system that can provide everything immediately, so that farmers can have everything at hand. Then there are biotechnological measures and instruments that are necessary in agriculture to guarantee food security and the well-being of all citizens. In the agricultural sector, we have also to keep quality in mind, as well as the efficiency of farming in our farmland. Thank you for your attention. Thank you, Evgeny. With your presentation, we have already touched the topic of the engineering solution, and I give the floor to the co-founder of the Caffini company, which was founded in 1924. It is a historical company, not just in Italy, but in Europe. It is specialized in the sector of plant protection products that are exported to 30 countries around the world. It is a very innovative business. Good afternoon. We have been speaking about the challenges that we shall have to take up in future years, especially in view of the increase in the number of inhabitants in the world. we should never lose sight of this sustainability in agriculture. Another important aspect is the reduction of farmland. In Austria, for example, this is happening every year in a substantial way. The need to manage water resources is also essential. 40% of the total necessity is consumed every year. We have improved results thanks to precision farming. I will tell you how it works. The machines for these activities are equipped with electronic control. They carry out all the different farming activities in an automatic way, such as sowing, etc. They can manage the data, their actual computers, and also analyze them later. These machines have to be equipped with GPS systems and GONAS systems, so that the machine can be identified, localized, and its work can be followed up. Thanks to the data concerning the previous year harvest, some maps can be loaded onto the machines so that in a very specific site, a better work can be ensured. For example, in the case of sowing machines will be able to sow more seeds in the areas where the yield had been lower in the previous year. And in the case of fertilizers, it's going to work in the same way. The production of the previous year will be taken into consideration. A further important aspect in precision farming is that balanced irrigation is important and has to be based on the actual slopes of the farmland. Studying the land is important also to reduce the use of fuel. In the case of the machines dedicated to crop treatment, we tried to reduce the plant products to protect crops. You can see some examples. You see some virtuous machinery here among vineyards that they can apply the anti-parasite products. Some of the product can be recovered, filtered, and it can be put back into the tank to be used again. 40% of the chemical product can be recovered in this way, and the same has been done in open fields, not just in vineyards. There is an air hose that enables us to treat the whole of the farmland. And in this way, we can reduce the use of water by 40%. Further application concerns mechanical weed killing. Just by using water between the various rows of plants, doing away with the use of glyphosate. All of these innovations have have introduced a better management of the land and the protection of the environment. There are directives, the directive number 127 of 2009 provides instructions on the areas to be treated, especially near sensitive areas, public areas, rivers, watercourses, etc. The producers of this type of machinery have to take all the environmental issues into consideration, but this is not sufficient. The market is requesting the traceability of treatments of crops. Even apples, for example, it is important to state the traceability of all the treatments that they underwent by using performing machinery used for precision farming. In addition to working, the machinery can collect data and transmit them to the cloud. With the approval of the farmer, of course, and the farmer will be able to use those data for the distribution chains or to provide data to the public administrations. This is how it works. You see this chart. Farming tools have changed. Even mobile phones can be used to control these activities. The farmer, by putting his mobile phone near the machine, will be able to collect the data, to read the data concerning the seeds, for example, to be used in sowing, or the weed killers, and all these data that will be grouped in sets of data and then stored on the cloud in a certified way. And then they can be discharged, downloaded from the cloud and used for the treatment registers or for the accounting purposes. Public administrations can also be interested in this because they can request the data. They will be able to see in a transparent way what type of operations have been carried out in the fields in terms of use of fertilizers, etc. The farmer can read the data and the type of chemical product that is being applied, and the public authorities can do the same and follow all the farming activities. Or maybe it can be the shops, the points of sale, the larger distributors that may want to see the traceability of all the products in agreement with the protocols of intent, or the OCG consortia. In addition to traceability, the traceability of treatments, we can also use special sensors to check fuel consumption, fluid temperatures, and the wear and tear of the components, so as to recommend maintenance activities before the use of a piece of machinery, and improve the overall equipment over time. The machines are interconnected. They can be connected to the company or web-linked. They are more complex machines, which probably will require more maintenance than in the past. This is why it is fundamental for the manufacturers to supply real-time assistance we have just presented a new type of remote assistance, so that if a machine breaks in the middle of Russian steppes, then the problem can be solved. All these technologies are not needed or not usable if the broadband is not available. This is why the political world has to do something to support the use of technologies with the effective telecommunication systems. This is a practical example. If a piece of machinery breaks down, by using a mobile phone, the operator can call the company, the customer assistance service can use camera to check the components that may have caused the breakdown. Smartphones can be used, but also smart glasses, as you can see in the photograph. The problem is identified, and then on the screen, on the actual smartphone display, and in this case we see that a connector is disconnected without the need of calling in a technician. The problem can be solved directly by the operator, by the person who is using the machine, avoiding a lot of costs. These technologies are available now. It is not science fiction. They are available for any type of machine. This is the result of years of work and important investments that are needed today to be able to use these machines smoothly.
Спасибо, сеньор Кафини. Я хотела бы сказать, что все два докладчика, которые говорили сейчас, они концентрировались на том, как важно для потребителя, для всех нас здесь получать информацию о качестве продовольствия по всей продуктовой цепи. Но вот одна картинка на вашей презентации навела меня на другую мысль, где фермер стоит с вилами и с смартфоном. Это еще один важный эффект. Мы наконец-то приведем молодежь в сельское хозяйство. Это очень важно для всего мира. Господа.
Attracting young people to agriculture. The next speaker is Mr. Dmitry Shatnikov, the head of one of the Russian startups in the area of agriculture. He's going to talk about the practical application of what we heard from the previous two speakers. Mr. Shaposhnikov is an expert of the practical implementation of traceability of state-of-the-art product all the way to the final consumer. Thank you very much. Allow me first and foremost to thank the organizers of this forum. It's really a top-level initiative. I also wish to thank very much our chairperson for listing the various presentations in the right sequence. It will be much easier for me to explain a number of things. The moderator says I'm not going to give you one more minute for these comments. Now, Hippocrates 2,000 years ago said food must become your medicine. And actually, if we think of the first product ever taken by human beings is milk, the milk from the mother, and that is the real medicine that is conveyed through one mother's milk and strengthens the immune system. Milk derivatives, milk products are very often used by human beings throughout their lives. Yet, in the present time, protein contents, fat contents, and calories are monitored carefully. We felt that these parameters would be sufficient, but we actually forgot an important point. Milk influences the chemistry of blood, so in addition to proteins and fats, there's another important component, and that is antibodies that build up our immune system. One of the problems in companies in this sector is the leukemia affecting cows. That does not mean, of course, that that means that these animals are ill. During pasteurization, leukemia cells die, admittedly, but they will still be there and have an impact on the human immune system. So milk is expected to improve our health, but this may not necessarily be the case. For this reason, we have set up a system for product traceability all the way to the final consumer. In order to be able to monitor production and supply of milk and milk derivatives, to guarantee the healthy milk to final consumers, we have this project based on blockchains, which includes 4 parameters: animal care, logistics, laboratory tests, and final consumers' demand. Herd monitoring is based on a system that we have developed ourselves. So a system that monitors health, productivity, and the conditions in which animals are kept. Then there are other 2 modules. One concerns the genetic monitoring to see how the how the product develops. To monitor these things all the way to the final consumer, we have developed this system called IDID. It's 2 synchronized softwares based on the use of IPI. Using this mobile phone app, the farmer may be able to know from the label what has happened to that point. Then the driver will read the barcode, and that will be again another monitoring step. That will be followed by a geolocation system. The final consumer, therefore, takes advantage of the logistic monitoring performed by several peoples. When the truck gets to its destination, a further monitoring session is performed on proteins, fats, and somatic cells to guarantee that milk is healthy. Then the ID system receives information concerning the technology of milk production, and on the basis of regulation that indicates which kind of product will come from that amount of milk. After that, the produce reaches the final deposit and then the shops. When final consumers get into the shop using their smartphones, they'll be able to read this QR code and get all information about where those animals were, what were their conditions, when they were milked, and in which conditions. How long it took to bring the milk to the plant, what kind of products were made starting from it, the batch number. So you have a full tracing all the way to the final consumer. So what you see on the screen now is exactly the kind of information that final consumers may have access to. So they can see who is the real producer, the monitoring made, and the information on the products that they want to buy. So they can be sure about the health condition of that product. Our mentors are the main manufacturers, main organization, the Ministry of Agriculture of Tajikistan and IT Technological Park. We have developed this in Tajikistan to make the world better. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you so much, Dimitri. Once again, I want to underline that all the things that we are discussing today are focusing on consumers. There's a worldwide concern about food quality among consumers. So what is being done in this context is not simply aimed at making farming more efficient and effective, but to guarantee people's health. The next speaker is Paolo Marchesini, International Government and Industry Affairs Manager at Corteva Agri-Science and the Agricultural Division of Dow DuPont. It's a very well-known and famous company, and I want to thank Paolo personally because we invited him very recently, and he was very kind to join us nonetheless. So thank you very much. The floor is yours.
The kind introduction, and thank you for the invitation to speak. It's a privilege to be here with all you to this important gathering. And as you said, I would just start this brief presentation, this brief exchange of view with you about the role of innovation in ensuring a sustainable agriculture for the future from the consumer. You mentioned the role the consumer is increasingly having in all issues related to agriculture and the food value chain. What we are seeing is that agriculture is dramatically changing. The way we think, or the way we have to think agriculture is dramatically changing in these years. And in fact, we can say that we are facing a real revolution. This revolution comes from particularly due to the needs and to the voice of the consumers who are more and more influencing and driving what the agriculture is in terms of needs, in terms of expectation, in terms of requirement. Just think about the expectation consumers have about not simply the quantity of food or the price of food, but the nutritional value of the food, the impact on the health of the food they have for meal, and the requirements, and consequently also a lot of requirements in terms of diversification on the food. Think about the many free-from foods we have, from GMOs, from antibiotics, from a lot of different things. So there is an increasing complexity in the world and increasing challenges. Clearly, this is related also to the aspect of a demand for environmental sustainability. It's not enough producing enough food at affordable and cheap price and with certain requirements, but it is also important the way we produce the food. And the consumer is pay a lot of attention, is very demanding on this aspect in terms of environmental stewardship. And clearly related to environmental stewardship, and when we talk about environmental, I go back to what was said before about climate change, water scarcity, all these big topics. There is also the big topic of reducing the food waste. awareness of the fact that food security can be achieved by protecting, defending our food and reducing the waste is well spread among the consumer. And finally, I cannot forget to mention the fact that today food is not just food for most of the people, in particular in Europe. When a consumer think about food, they think about culture, tradition, their roots, the family, and so a very local perspective of what is food. All these, let's say, elements are clearly impacting the view we have as a company. Corteva is a new company. To tell the truth, it's still not yet a company. It will be a company on July 1st next year, and this is the merger of the agriculture division of Dow and DuPont, two traditional chemical companies with a long history. And it's interesting to consider that in setting a new company, I'm not spending words now to present the company, but just to make you aware of the importance of the role of consumer and the change agriculture is facing also in thinking ourselves, it's important just think about what is our mission and the purpose of this company. The purpose is to enrich the lives of those who produce and those who consume, ensuring progress for generations to come. And if you think that this is the mission of a global ag company, is the only global company 100% dedicated to agriculture nowadays, and it's interesting to see the importance we give to consumers, not just to producers, to consumers, and to sustainability. These are the three pillars we are building. And when we talk about ensuring the progress, we talk about solutions. I think thinking for us just in terms of products, thinking about the opportunity of single technology is not enough for us, for the way we approach the market. We prefer to think about solutions. A solution is a sort of package, let's say, let me put it this way, where there are products, technology, knowledge, and understanding of consumer and local needs. So this is very important. So in this let's say, package, you find a lot of different opportunities and technologies and tools, let's say, it's a sort of toolkit, where you have the seeds, where we have our crop protection pipeline, and where we have, for sure, digital solutions. Digital is not simply an additional tool, but is something that really driving the way consumers and producers are looking at agriculture. It's really a different way of thinking, because as it was clearly shown in the presentation before mine, a producer, a farmer who is let's say, on air, who is digitally connected with the web and so on, means that is in real time aware of what are the best solutions for him in terms of inputs, what are the customer demands, and consequently what are the best market for placing their products. So it's really a global view for a farmer to look at his own business, completely different to what was the situation just 15 years ago. And finally, I mean, consider that here there are no ideology, there is not the silver bullet fixing in one way all the problems of the world, but each country has its own needs, and each technology has its own opportunity in this basket, including a new area, you see, natural products and biologicals. I know that for most of people, it's a bit strange listening to a multinational company talking about biological, talking about natural products, but this is the reality today. There are a lot of opportunities around, and we think that a solution can be achieved only really bringing together the best available in terms of innovation and solutions. And the global scope, how we live our global presence in the world. It's being globally present is an opportunity in terms of resource to invest. It's not a mystery that making research today is becoming more and more expensive. not because of lack of good ideas, not because of lack of good scientists, but because very often an increasing challenges at the regulatory level in terms of cost, timing, and complexity to manage innovation across the world. So a global reach is for sure one of the ways we identified as a company to be able to have enough resource to develop innovative solutions and to be able to deliver this solution globally. But when we talk about innovation, it's important to really well understand what today means innovation for us, for Corteva. Innovation is not simply investing money in R&D in order to develop a new product and place this product on the market. This was the traditional approach. Clearly, most of our pipeline is built on this approach. But innovation is a way of thinking today for agriculture. Innovation comes together with another word that is open. You see in the presentation that there are the two last bullet points I put in bold, which are very important to understand the way we think a sustainable agriculture can be developed in the future. The first bullet point is commitment to partner with society, and the second point is open innovation model. What does it mean? That no single player is able to really find the solution to the challenge of today's agriculture. The solution to agricultural challenges can be found sitting around the table, all stakeholders sitting around the table. And when I refer to all stakeholders, I mean civil society, I mean consumer, I mean institution, I mean research, public research, and the private sector, sitting and exchanging ideas. Is practically, we say that we are entering in a phase where we are open to bring the outside in. So we as a company are very interested to listen and to understand what is happening outside, what are the ideas, what are the suggestions, what are the solutions, what are the needs and expectations of the society, and in the meantime also to bring the inside out. So to be very open to share what are our views, our ideas, our dreams, our solution with the rest of the society. So this is a quite, let's say, dramatic change in the way a company like Corteva approaches the market, in a way the private sector is positioning itself in front of the rest of the stakeholders. And it's particularly interesting, the point I will stress this point about bringing the inside out. What does it mean? It means that the company understands that a way to find the best solution is also giving access to the other stakeholders to its own proprietary ideas, solution, patents, and intellectual properties, and so on. So if we discover a new metabolite, a new way of action, a new process, it is really key in the frame of general interest to share this idea with who is really interested to work on the same project or could benefit from having access to this innovation. So this is very interesting. In the last few weeks, I have been traveling across Southern Europe and meeting a lot of stakeholders, in particular, clearly private companies, but we say our focus for Europe about innovation today is mostly on startups, is mostly about public research. And explaining this concept of open innovation is a very structured project that is available also on our website. I invite you to come and visit our website at corteva.com. And it's interesting because it doesn't cover simply one technology or one single aspect, but is really a big opportunity where the company discloses a lot of let's say, knowledge, proprietary of the company on many areas, like conventional breeding, biotechnology, crop protection, seed applied technologies, solution, agronomic solution, digital solution, and much more. And I put an emphasis on CRISPR. CRISPR-Cas is a gene editing technology. It's important because there are really many expectations on the value and the benefit this technology can bring to the market, but in particular it can bring to consumers and environment. This is a technology that will make possible developing products, bringing a real value to end consumer and bringing a real value in terms of environmental sustainability. And I'm not creating false expectation. You know that 15 years ago, industry was accused to create a lot of false expectation about biotechnology MOs. First of all, because this is not the silver bullet who is going to solve the problem in agriculture. A second point, because I'm thinking about products who will be on the market in a couple of years, 2-3 years maximum. So, but it's important. The other reason why I pointed out this aspect, and this is just an example, is because in Europe, a few weeks ago, we had a decision at regulatory level in the European Union classifying this technology as part of GMOs, so putting under the umbrella of biotechnology and so on. And in this way, really undermining the freedom to operate of public research in developing solutions for agriculture in Europe. And I mentioned this fact just as an example, because the company decided to go on giving access to the patents and the intellectual property items on this technology to all public research in Europe, because we think that innovation cannot be stopped. Perhaps there is a challenge, there is a burden, perhaps there are some constraints today, but we need to think in a long-term perspective exactly for the reason I mentioned before, that is that we are really facing a revolution in agriculture, and we really need to change our way of thinking agriculture with a long-term perspective. So this is my last slide, and I will leave you with the message really to, and this is a message for ourselves first of all, and for all the stakeholders we deal with, is to be curious, to look, to discuss, to exchange views, because again, there are big challenges in agriculture, and there are big opportunities, and I think there are also bright minds and great ideas, and we need to work all together to make them come true. Thank you very much.
Спасибо, Пауло. Я особенно ценю две темы, которые...
Thank you. I very much appreciate the aspects you have mentioned, the integrity of the approach, because just single innovations are not sufficient to solve problems. I followed the same type of issues within the FAO, and I know that not everywhere does this issue attract the same attention. A separate session should be dedicated to technology transfer, a very sensitive topic and painful in some ways around the world. Thank you for mentioning this. As I'm the chairperson, I feel I can change our schedule. So I will change the order of the speakers. I now invite Oded Shoseyov, full professor of the Faculty of Agriculture, Environment, the Jewish University of Jerusalem. He contributed to 50 patents, and he's director of 12 startups.
Thank you very much for the introduction. So the title of my talk is The Plant Age Materials for the Future. And before I start, I would like to quote the former Minister of Oil of Saudi Arabia that said that the Stone Age did not end for lack of stone. And so the old age will end long before the world will run out of oil. And for a good reason, because biomaterials are so much better. But we shouldn't criticize our scientists so much, because we didn't have much time. 200 years to develop synthetic materials is not enough time, while nature had 3 billion years to develop some of the most amazing materials that we wish we had in our possession. Yet, our medical doctors, particularly orthopedic surgeons, still glue and screw synthetic materials in our body. And I don't think that this is a great idea for a simple reason, because synthetic material fail. Many times they fail just like this plastic fork because it's not strong enough, but other times they fail because these materials may be strong, but they don't really fit their surrounding tissues. But the real reason why it's not a good idea is because in nature, things are done differently. In nature, every living cell, whether it comes from a plant, from fish, or a human being, it has a DNA, and the DNA encodes for these nanobio building blocks, which are typically proteins that recognize each other, and they don't really need us. They recognize each other, self-assemble into scaffolds on which cells are proliferating, organizing into tissues, and the tissues are organized into organs, and together, that's life. So we at the Hebrew University, in my Faculty of Agriculture, we decided to focus on probably the most important biomaterial for us, for human, and that's collagen. Now, why collagen? Because collagen accounts for about 30% of our dry weight. We have nothing more than collagen in our body except for water. So I'll give you a few examples. Bone is about 50% collagen. Our skin is about 70% collagen. Tendons and ligaments, close to 100% collagen. So I always like to say that anyone who is in the business of replacement parts for human being would like to have collagen. But admittedly, 15 years ago, when we just started the project at the university, they were already on the market, in the clinic, more than 1,000 different medical implants made of collagen. Simple things like dermal fillers to reduce wrinkles, bone grafts, artificial meniscus, and even leaflets of heart valves. So you should ask me, well then, why bother? You just told us that they were already on the market before you started the research. Well, the reason is the source. Up until recently, the source of collagen for all these products was dead bodies, dead pigs, dead cows, and human cadaver. So that's not a very safe source because they all harbor human pathogens, like viruses, prions, medical disease, you name it. And so the FDA already in 2007 made a notice and asking the companies to start and look for better alternatives. So that's exactly what we did. We cloned all the 5 human genes from human that are responsible to make human collagen in our body, and by genetic engineering, introduce all these 5 human genes into a single tobacco plant. So now the plant can make human collagen, identical to what we have in our body. Well, the technology was matured. In Israel, we established a company called Coal Plant. Today in Israel, we have 25,000 square meters of greenhouses all over the country, from the upper Galilee in the middle of the country, in the southern part of the country. The farmers receive from the company these small tobacco plantlets that looks exactly like regular tobacco, except contains 5 human genes. We grow them for about 50 to 60 days. We harvest the leaves. The leaves are transported by cooling trucks to the factory where we start the process. Now, if you ever made pesto, obviously in Italy, everybody knows how to make pesto. You know how to make collagen. Except it's a very big food processor. You crush the leaves with a buffer, squish it, get the juice, concentrate the protein. Protein is then transported to clean rooms. And the end result is collagen, which is identical to what we have in our body, from which we make different medical implants. So we are making now replacement parts for human being implants. 2 of these products already completed clinical trials, already on the market here in Europe and in Israel. Another interesting creature that nature gave us is these cat fleas. Cat fleas attract my imagination in the lab for the last 20 years. The reason I like cat fleas is because they have this wonderful ability to jump due to a special kind of protein. Now, why they're so amazingly for us, and it's a simple reason, because they jump as high as 100 to 200 times their height. And that's amazing, because this is the equivalent of a person standing in the middle of Manhattan, and in a single jump go to the top of the Empire State Building. So you admit that this is remarkable, and many people would like to have this ability. So how catfleas do it? In fact, they make this very special protein, which is called resilin. Resilin, in simple words, is the best rubber on earth, much better than any synthetic rubber that we can make. You can stretch it, you can squish it, and it doesn't lose almost any energy to the environment. Everything is stored. So catfleas make this wonderful material as a jumping pad, and when they want, they release it, and boom, brings all the energy, and they can jump. So now the question is, how can we get resilin? Well, to catch catfleas is not a good idea because they're jumping, and even if you catch few, you don't have much material. But you don't have to. All you have to do is to catch only one, and then extract the DNA from the cat flea and introduce it into a less jumpy organism. In fact, only the gene that encodes for the resilin. So that's exactly what we did. So now we can make a lot of resilin in the plant. What can you do with that? A lot of things. Today we're working with On, it's a Swiss company, to make that specialize in sport shoes that would like for athletes to have better performance. Well, as you can see, plants are really great. And we thought, what else can we do with plants which is meaningful? Well, biologic drugs. Now, why biologic drugs? Biologic drugs are very popular these days. In fact, Humira, which is indicated for rheumatoid arthritis and Crohn's disease, is probably the best-selling drug in the world. It's a $16 billion drug annually, just Humira. For a good reason. It's a very good drug because it is a humanized antibody. It's a very big protein that goes to the target. So that's why it's a good product, except one big problem, very, very expensive. The cost per patient is $35,000 US per year. So that's $100 a day, which means that only one out of 1,000 people in the world that would like to enjoy Humira can afford it. So you should ask me, well, why is it so expensive? Maybe the patents. Well, there is no patent, the patent is off. You say, well, maybe there is no competition. Well, there is competition. In fact, there are already 4 companies that make Humira, the same way that AbbVie makes them. And that's the problem. Making Humira is typically done by mammalian cell culture in very expensive bioreactors. So these are very special mammalian cells with the gene of the Humira antibody, and they grow them in very expensive equipment, clean rooms, very expensive media, so that's why it's expensive. So what we did, we cloned the genes that encodes for Humira from the mammalian cells and introduced them into tobacco plant. So now we can grow it at a cost of tomato. So you should ask me, is it enough? Well, the answer, unfortunately, no, it's not enough. Why? Because purifying the antibody is also very expensive. In the industry, it's done by another very special protein called protein A. That is, again, produced by fermentation and then purified and then used in a very expensive equipment, clean rooms, and so on. So I said, okay, let's clone that as well and introduce the protein A also into the plant. So essentially, we took a very expensive infrastructure and by genetic engineering introduced everything into simple agriculture. So we can now produce everything in the greenhouse, just like we grow lettuce or pepper or tomato. So the target of BioBetter is not $100 a day, but 70 cents a day. We've been able to cut the cost of production by 2 orders of magnitude without affecting the margins. Now you should tell me you're crazy because you just cannibalized the market. You took a $16 billion business and converted it to $160 million. And I say no. In fact, because we have now 3 orders of magnitude more customers, we converted a $16 billion business to $160 billion. And the nice thing about it is we don't really need the governments because Even a farmer in India that makes maybe $8 a day and suffers from Crohn's disease or rheumatoid arthritis, he can spare 70 cents a day so he can continue to work. He doesn't need any insurance. So what's for the future? I believe that agriculture will be the source of lots of things, not just food. In fact, everything that nature provided for us, whether from the insect kingdom, like the resin, or the collagen from mammalian cells, or drugs, everything can be produced in plants. And we will be able to purify those materials in using modern technologies like 3D printing to assemble and build even a heart. Now, this heart is not going to be as good as we can get from a donor. It will be better. Now, you probably sitting there and say, hey, this is this crazy guy talking about making artificial heart by 3D printing, and I'm telling you, this is not science fiction. Maybe heart will take us some time. But last week, actually, CoPlant announced an agreement with 3D Systems. This is the largest 3D printing company in the world, in United Therapeutics, for a project of printing with our collagen a human lung. And we will be first in men in 2021. So this is really very soon. And I would like to wrap up my talk by quoting Nobel laureate Ivan Petrovich Pavlov, who once said, if you want a new idea, you should read old books. And my addition to that is that the book was written. It was written over billions of years of evolution. And it's the DNA of life. All we need to do is read the text of the DNA and start our progress from there. Thank you.
Спасибо, Адет. Видимо, меня учили экономике сельского хозяйства.
Thank you very much. When I studied the economy of agriculture, I studied it in modern books, not in old ones, and we were always taught that agriculture is suffering very much because of the prices and the pricing gap. And the answer that we were given is that innovation is important in resources, but one can there be new in agriculture? An apple is an apple and wheat is wheat, but you have just explained incredible things to us. Agriculture is not only food, but it can be the basis for life, the life of humankind. Thank you for this new vision in agriculture. Thank you very much. I was reading old books, but not the right ones, it seems. Thank you. Now, as a dessert, I would like to introduce to you the president of the Sicilian region, a large and important Italian region, where agriculture is as important as tourism. We shall hear how challenges are taken up there and how the president of such a large region can tackle these challenges. Mr. Sebastiano Musumeci, you have the floor. Thank you very much. Thank you for letting me intervene in this prestigious forum today. I would like to go back to the agro-food sector. I'm an administrator of a community of citizens. I deal with different fields, so I will not comment about scientific progress. I will speak about the difficult role that a region such as Sicily can play vis-à-vis the challenges that we are seeing today. Sicily is the last part of Italy, the nearest to the African continent. We can say that it is the first European land that you meet coming from Africa, and it is a land of excellence in farming. 63 products have been recognized as EC, 17 DOP, denomination of a protected origin, 11 in EGP, 31 brands that have been protected in the field of winemaking. Sicily ranks second after Lombardy in Italy for the added value at the basic prices. But industry is lagging behind. It ranks sixth for the trading of processing and trading of agricultural products, because the supply is very much fragmented. Sicilians and individualists, they want to have a leading role everywhere, and because of this, they don't concentrate the productive offer, and they don't invest enough in projects concerning the production chain. But then with as consumers get to know the production better, more and more products are being sold abroad. In 10 years, exports have gone up by 62%, with an annual growth rate of 25%. Half of them are fresh crops, and others are processed agricultural products. I was telling you that Sicilians are individualists. This is an anthropological feature of our people, and this affects the technological development of Sicily. Sicilians mistrust everything new. All that is mysterious and unknown is both a limit and a resource. A limit in the sense, a limit because the innovation processes are not stimulated at all. Their innovation is not rejected, but it is slowed down. But at the same time, this has been a resource in the sense that Sicilian farming has been able to preserve its production and defend it from any contamination. In Sicily, the processing of crop products is still the same that was used 300, 400 years ago, with a strong identity that was recognized by the European directives, which makes it possible for some Sicilian products to be unique in the international markets. It is not accidental that Sicily is a leader for organic production. We are going back to the cultivation of wheat and grains, seeds in particular. There is battle going on against cereals coming from and seeds coming from countries that do not guarantee that those products are not contaminated. That we are going back to autochthonous species by using the genetic code bank. We are now using great varieties that had disappeared in those areas for 50 years. Oranges are often imported from other countries, other Mediterranean countries. But the typical product in Sicily is the red orange, not the light colored oranges. So, because everybody thinks that oranges have to have an orange color, but it is not so. The red oranges are only grown in eastern Sicily because of the temperature change between night and day due to the presence of the tallest active volcano in Europe, Etna. In the red pulp, there is the anthocyanin, which is used in the prevention of cancer. I've explained all this to give you an idea of the biodiversity that we have in Sicily. At the same time, there are a lot of threats coming from the market and a very keen, fierce competition. In order to fight against fake products, some products that are advertised as Sicilian products because the brand of Sicily is present throughout the world. All we can do is introducing new technologies which are fundamental for the traceability of food products, and I'm referring to the raw materials, to semi-finished products and finished products. In 2011, Sicily approved a law that allows the use of IT systems in support to the promotion and sale of agricultural products. The exchange between producers and consumers are still difficult. Trade is not so much developed, and it should, because it could be an advantage for both groups. Together with the University of Messina, the region has signed a research protocol for the defense of Sicilian meat. From autochthonous breeds of animals. Also, do import cattle from other European countries that are not always successful and profitable in comparison with the autochthonous Sicilian breeds that are usually reared for the production of milk. I was elected 10 months ago, and my government is paying a particular attention to the Eastern European markets. Russia in particular. We have contacts with the Republic of Tatarstan. We were invited to St. Petersburg. We have excellent relations with the Russian embassy in Italy, and we hope to be able to consolidate this relations with the Eastern European countries, because we are not in direct competition and we have so much to exchange. So our main objective is to develop the cognitive infrastructure of the agro-food production chain, and we do that in collaboration with the 4 Sicilian universities that we have, with the research institutes, both public and private, with the higher education institutes. We have published a call for projects to support new startups in the sector of agriculture. But there are so many young people wishing to go back to farming, and this is very encouraging. Of course, the old idea of Sicily with the farmers just working on their fields, or landlords who exploited their employees. But the modern change is taking place very gradually and slowly, but we do have hopes. In the global competition, agricultural production chains have to show competence in developing innovation. We need to find a point of contact between the suppliers and the users. This is a main challenge that we hope we can overcome, so that Sicily, which is the poorest region in Italy, can grow without having to chase miracles, but just exploiting the resources that we do have available.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sebastiano. I think it was the best conclusion you could ever draw from this session. Very often, agriculture, which has traditionally been linked to cultivation, organic farming, etc. Well, very often these forms of agriculture are against innovation, and yet we have heard from you about how to preserve conventional farming as part of the local culture. Food is part of the national culture, and this also requires innovation. This is really the winning element for Sicily. We don't really have time for Q&A. We've already exceeded the time available to us. So, on behalf of everybody, I would like to thank you for the beautiful talks, and also personal thanks to the speakers, because they were able to stick to their time. I do hope that we can work for the common good of everybody. I would also like to thank our interpreters. I listened to them in all 3 languages, and it was an excellent translation. And I do hope that the world continues moving on successfully, also thanks to the people that have taken the floor here. Thanks everybody. I do hope that the organizers